The boardroom was built to intimidate, and it succeeded effortlessly. Polished marble floors reflected the sharp lines of the glass walls, and the long conference table seemed to stretch endlessly, like a test of endurance rather than furniture. At the far end sat Evelyn Carter, the CEO whose name alone could end careers or launch them overnight. Her presence was calm, controlled, almost surgical, as if emotions were inefficient tools she had long ago discarded. Around her sat senior executives, legal advisors, and investors, all quietly tapping tablets or folding hands with practiced confidence. Standing alone before them was Daniel Brooks, a single father in a modest suit that fit well enough to hide how rarely it was worn. His palms were slightly damp, not from fear of rejection. He had learned to live with disappointment, but from the knowledge that today mattered. This pitch wasn't just about funding. It was about survival, about keeping his small education startup alive so he could continue building a future for his daughter. As he spoke, his voice was steady, his ideas sharp, his passion evident in the way he described children learning not just facts, but confidence. Evelyn listened without interruption, her eyes unreadable, giving no sign of approval or doubt. Daniel had learned not to expect reactions from people like her. Halfway through his presentation, just as he was explaining the platform's impact on underprivileged families, the heavy door creaked open. A small figure peeked inside, curly hair slightly messy, pink backpack slipping off one shoulder. Lily. Daniel's heart dropped. He had arranged childcare, triple-checked everything, but life had a way of ignoring plans. Before he could call out to her, Lily's eyes found Evelyn, and something familiar lit up her face. She broke into a smile so bright it felt out of place in the cold room and ran forward without hesitation. Tiny arms wrapped around Evelyn's leg, and in a soft, clear voice that cut through the silence, she said, "Mommy." The word landed like glass shattering. Every head turned. Fingers froze mid-scroll. Daniel felt the room spin. Evelyn stiffened, her body reacting before her mind could catch up. Slowly, she looked down at the child clinging to her, then back at Daniel. Her expression didn't show anger, but something far more dangerous, controlled confusion. "Why?" she asked evenly. "Does your daughter call me Mommy?" Daniel swallowed hard. His throat tightened, and for a brief moment, he considered apologizing, inventing a harmless misunderstanding, anything to escape the weight of that question. But Lily looked up at Evelyn with complete trust, and Daniel knew lies would only make things worse. He gently guided Lily to his side, resting a calming hand on her shoulder. The room felt smaller now, the glass walls closing in as if waiting for his answer. "Because she remembers you," he said quietly. Evelyn raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. Daniel took a breath and continued, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. He spoke of a night 3 years earlier, a night filled with flashing hospital lights and the sound of machines that never stopped beeping. He described how Lily's mother had been rushed into emergency surgery, how he had been too numb to think, too terrified to comfort his daughter properly. He told them how Lily had been left sitting alone in a hallway, her small feet dangling above the floor, tears streaking her face as strangers passed by without stopping. "I was signing forms," Daniel said, his eyes never leaving Evelyn's, "and I looked up to see a woman kneeling in front of my daughter, holding her hands, talking to her like nothing else in the world mattered." Evelyn's posture shifted slightly, a crack forming in her composure. Daniel described how that woman had listened to Lily ramble about her favorite cartoon, how she had wiped her tears with a silk handkerchief, how she had promised, without knowing if it was true, that her mommy was very strong. "You stayed with her," Daniel said, "longer than anyone had to." A faint memory stirred behind Evelyn's eyes, something buried under years of meetings and deadlines. Daniel explained how Lily's mother never came out of surgery, how that hallway moment became the last memory Lily clung to from that night. "She asked about you for weeks," he said softly. "She said the nice lady made her feel safe. In her mind, safety meant mother." The room was silent, not even the hum of the air conditioning daring to intrude. Lily tugged gently at Evelyn's sleeve again, smiling up at her. You said I was brave, she said proudly. Evelyn's breath caught. She remembered now. The gala dress she had ruined kneeling on a hospital floor, the phone she had ignored while sitting with a stranger's child, the promise she had whispered without thinking. For the first time since the meeting began, her voice wasn't perfectly controlled. You were brave, she said, kneeling down to Lily's level. When she stood again, something had changed. The CEO was still there, but so was the woman who had once stopped in a hallway and chosen kindness. Please, Evelyn said quietly, finish your presentation. But Daniel knew, as did everyone else in that room, that the most important part had already been said. The meeting ended without applause or formal conclusions, but the air felt heavier than when it had begun, as if everyone had just witnessed something too personal to comment on. One by one, the executives gathered their papers and tablets, offering Daniel polite nods that carried a different kind of respect than before. Evelyn dismissed them with a short gesture, her voice calm but distant, until the boardroom emptied and only she, Daniel, and Lily remained. The silence that followed was not awkward, but full, stretching between them like a fragile bridge. Evelyn walked slowly toward the window, the city below moving on as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. Her reflection stared back at her, sharp, composed, powerful, and yet unfamiliar. I don't usually allow interruptions, she said at last, not turning around. But today felt necessary. Daniel nodded, unsure whether to speak. Lily had settled onto one of the leather chairs, swinging her legs and humming softly, content simply to be present. Evelyn turned back, studying the child with a mixture of curiosity and restraint. I didn't remember at first, she admitted quietly. That night at the hospital, it blended into so many others. She paused, then added, but some moments leave marks even when we pretend they don't. Daniel felt a tightness in his chest ease slightly. He hadn't known what he expected. Apology, denial, dismissal. But her honesty surprised him. She asked about Lily's life now, her school, her favorite subjects, her dreams. Daniel answered simply, not exaggerating, not minimizing. He spoke of early mornings, packed lunches, bedtime stories read through exhaustion. He didn't frame himself as heroic. Some days, he said, I feel like I'm barely holding things together. Evelyn listened closely, as if the words mattered more than any quarterly report she had ever read. Lily wandered over, picking up a glass paperweight from the table and examining it with fascination. Evelyn watched her carefully, then gently took it from her hand and replaced it on the table. Instead of reprimanding her, she crouched down and explained why it could break. Lily nodded seriously, absorbing every word. The ease of the interaction surprised Daniel, and perhaps Evelyn too. You're very good with her, Daniel said before he could stop himself. Evelyn exhaled, almost a laugh. I don't know why, she replied. I never planned to be. She confessed then, haltingly, about the life she had chosen. Long nights, constant travel, relationships postponed until they faded away. I told myself impact came from scale, she said, from building things that lasted longer than people. She glanced at Lily. I didn't realize how small moments could matter more. Daniel sat down across from her, exhaustion settling into his bones now that the tension had lifted. That night, he said, I was angry at the world. I didn't even notice my daughter slipping away emotionally until I saw you with her. You didn't fix anything. You just stayed. Evelyn closed her eyes briefly. She remembered the weight of Lily's hands, the way the child had leaned into her as if she belonged there. I don't deserve the title she gives me, Evelyn said softly. Daniel shook his head. She doesn't use it as a title, he replied. She uses it as a feeling. Lily climbed onto the couch beside Evelyn without asking, curling up as if the space had always been hers. Evelyn froze for a second, then allowed it, resting her hand lightly on the child's back. No assistance, no cameras, no expectations. Just a moment she hadn't known she needed. What happens now? Evelyn asked, not looking at Daniel. He hesitated. Nothing has to happen, he said. I didn't come here for this. I just thought you deserved to know. Evelyn nodded slowly, but her expression suggested the truth had already rearranged something inside her. She offered Daniel a partnership, not just funding but mentorship, resources, patience. When she spoke about the future, it wasn't abstract. It was personal. Lily yawned, her head resting against Evelyn's side. Without thinking, Evelyn adjusted her jacket to make her more comfortable. Daniel noticed the gesture and felt something unfamiliar. Hope, cautious but real. As they prepared to leave, Evelyn knelt in front of Lily again. I'm glad you remember me, she said gently. Lily smiled sleepily. I never forgot, she replied. Evelyn stood there for a moment after they left, alone in the boardroom, the echo of that simple sentence following her long after the door closed. Time moved differently after that day, not in dramatic leaps but in small, deliberate steps that quietly reshaped everything. What began as a formal follow-up meeting turned into a shared lunch, then another, then evenings where Daniel found himself answering calls not about spreadsheets but about Lily's school projects or the best place nearby for ice cream. Evelyn never announced her intentions or made grand promises. She simply showed up. The first time she arrived at Daniel's apartment, she stood awkwardly in the doorway, expensive coat draped over her arm, clearly unsure of how to exist in a space so unlike her own. Lily solved the problem immediately by grabbing her hand and pulling her inside, proudly giving a tour that included every crayon drawing on the fridge and a plant Daniel kept forgetting to water. Evelyn listened with genuine interest, crouching to Lily's level, asking questions that made the child feel important. Daniel watched from the kitchen, struck by how naturally the walls Evelyn carried in public seemed to fall away here. Dinners were simple, takeout eaten from mismatched plates, but the conversations were rich, filled with laughter and the kind of silences that didn't need filling. Evelyn learned how to braid hair badly, how to read bedtime stories slowly, stopping to answer endless questions about dragons, stars, and why people had to go away. Lily corrected her gently, then hugged her fiercely, as if afraid she might disappear. Daniel saw the change in Evelyn long before she did herself. Her voice softened. She stopped checking her phone every few minutes. She listened not as a leader gathering data, but as a person learning how to care. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled outside and Lily insisted on sleeping on the couch between them, Evelyn admitted something she had never said aloud. I thought love was a distraction, she said quietly, staring at the dark window. Something that slowed you down. Daniel didn't answer immediately. Lily had already drifted off, her small hands holding both of theirs. Maybe it doesn't slow you, he said finally. Maybe it teaches you where to go. Evelyn turned to look at him, really look at him, not as a founder or a project, but as a man who had rebuilt his life from loss. In that moment, respect shifted into something warmer, deeper. Weeks became months. Evelyn rearranged her schedule without announcing it, declining trips that didn't matter, leaving meetings early to attend school plays where Lily waved from the stage like she had found her place in the world. Daniel never asked for this devotion, and Evelyn never framed it as sacrifice. Felt natural, necessary. One evening, after Lily had fallen asleep in her bed, Evelyn and Daniel sat quietly at the kitchen table. I'm afraid, Evelyn admitted. I don't want to take something that isn't mine. Daniel met her gaze steadily. She isn't something to take, he said. She's someone to choose. Tears filled Evelyn's eyes, unpracticed and real. She realized then that power had never prepared her for this kind of vulnerability. The next morning, Lily climbed into her lap during breakfast and looked up at her with complete certainty. Are you staying? She asked. Evelyn didn't hesitate. Yes, she said. The words settled into the room like a promise. Over time, the label Lily used stopped feeling borrowed and started feeling earned. Evelyn didn't replace anyone. She became something new. At a small school event, Lily introduced her proudly, and Evelyn felt the weight of the word not as pressure but as purpose. Daniel watched them together, gratitude swelling in his chest. He had once believed survival was the goal. Now he understood that healing was. On a quiet night, as Lily slept peacefully, Evelyn whispered the truth she had been carrying since that first meeting. Thank you for trusting me with her. Daniel smiled softly. Thank you for becoming someone worth trusting. Lily stirred in her sleep and reached out, her hand finding Evelyn's instinctively. Good night, Mommy, she murmured. Evelyn didn't correct her. She held on, finally understanding that the most important title she would ever carry wasn't printed on a business card, but spoken in the quiet voice of a child who felt safe enough to love.